This ZeroNow program is brought to you with the support of our founding partners.
I'm just one person.
Determined
to bring us back to zero.
I'm just one person.
Determined
to bring us back to zero.
I am just one person.
Determined to bring us back to zero.
All right, so thank you again, Robert, for joining us today. Let's start a little bit about your journey getting into the field of public safety. Tell us how you got involved.
That sounds like a great question, Michael. So thank you for interviewing me today. Basically, I'm an EdTech veteran. I've been in the education technology world for many years. And so I work with all of the education technology companies that provide different solutions that come together to improve the overall safety and well-being of the students in schools, both in K through 12 organizations and higher ed institutions. So really coming from the technology side more than anything.
So EdTech, as I understand it, is the combined use of different areas of technology to help students learn and to bolster learning. Can you tell us a little bit about how educational technology can be used to improve campus safety?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Michael. So I just wanted to correct you slightly. So education technology could be any type of software technology or any solution that improves and automates something to do with the schools, not just with the learning process. So many of the vendors are administrative tools, either to improve the overall like video surveillance of the campus. That's considered EdTech, even though it's not an actual academic solution. It's more of an administrative safety solution. So we refer to anything that is used by a school and or a student as educational technology to get started. When we start looking at the different types of EdTech solutions, we start looking at what part of the organization that it really impacts the most. Some of these solutions impact the academic learning environment. Like when I, as a student, log in to, let's say, a third-party application online, like an online algebra, online math, science tools, what kind of like tools that could be built in to improve my safety, my digital safety, while I'm doing online learning. So this has been a big problem, as you probably know, during COVID, when everybody moved to like really quickly to remote learning. Many schools weren't quite prepared, how to handle that, and to start using things like Zoom and Google Hangouts and all of that for video conferencing, like a virtual classroom. I'm sure you've heard about the Zoom bombing, and what that meant was people like strangers, were able to intercept the session and be with the students in the classroom and say profanities and do gestures and things like that, which was unacceptable. So we call that Zoom bombing. Why? Because the way that schools used Zoom, it wasn't really Zoom's problem. It was just the way Zoom was used in an unsafe manner, where strangers were able to intercept these links for the Zoom sessions and just invited themselves to join. So small things like being able to protect the whole learning environment by not allowing any strangers to come in unbeknownst for, or being able to filter the content that the kids are using online with filtering technology, or being able to prevent the sharing of the PII data. PII stands for personally identifiable information. Your full name, your email address, your phone number as a student, that's PII. Schools sometimes have to share that PII data with EdTech vendors to be able to create an account for you in that solution. But we've come up with some modern technologies now that anonymizes the users without requiring us to share their PII data with that vendor. It's more like anonymous provisioning. And so we continue to enhance the tools and the technologies to protect the personal information of the students, but also their online safety while they're logging in to the generic educational tools. And that's just for the learning environment. Once we move outside the learning environment, we move to the physical campus. You've been hearing about shooters on campus, very unsafe things happening to the students physically while they're on the campus. So there's all kinds of innovative AI-based and non-AI-based technologies improving the way we survey the campus from a video surveillance perspective, being able to detect guns as they come in hidden in somebody's garments coming into the campus. The AI tools could scan a gun now and tell you, oh, there's somebody coming into the perimeter of the campus that has a gun. So you can send security to do something about it and prevent an incident from happening in the first place. So being able to use these great technologies to protect the physical perimeter and the day-to-day physical environment at the campus is also EdTech, right? These are EdTech solutions. And one last thing I want to talk about EdTech is the area of how do you respond in the case of an emergency? Emergency preparedness and emergency management and notification. Like I ran a company called School Messenger. And School Messenger's claim to fame was like, if and when there is an emergency, we will do a mass notification to all the parents and all the stakeholders to let them know that there's an incident that's happening right now on the campus. You should come in and do something to help with your children, or you should stay away from the campus because there's an active shooter on the campus. So don't come and pick up the kids just yet because it's dangerous. So being able to do like an outbound notification in mass and could protect the lives of many students and parents. If there's a storm coming, a hurricane, being able to send messages to the parents, don't bring your kids to the classroom today or to the school because we're expecting a storm. All of that is emergency notification. That's been around for many years, but not everybody uses it, and not everybody uses it correctly. But again, this is considered EdTech. I don't know if I gave you enough of a feel for all the possible tools, but this is just a sample of many, many other tools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was great. And I think so much of the conversation around public safety is about being reactive. What do we do once an emergency has presented itself that is a threat to public safety? But a lot of what you have talked about is being proactive. Stop getting in front of danger and stopping it before it starts. So can you just talk a little bit more about how EdTech can be used in a proactive way to get ahead of emergencies on campus?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I would say proactive and preventative, right? How can we prevent wrong things happening? So for example, I was talking about the ability to filter the internet. So schools are mandated to use filtering technology. Some students don't like it, by the way, but at the end of the day, by applying these right filters, you're creating like a virtual network around the school, like a firewall around the school, to prevent some intruders to come in and start really disseminating, like unacceptable digital content to these kids using SchoolTube and not SchoolTube, but YouTube and things like that, where there's videos on how to build guns and how to build a bomb, and that's all available on the internet. But if you cannot prevent that from being accessible in the learning environment, you're actually preventing some kids just don't know better and they'd like to experiment with things. So depending on the age, you may want to just prevent them from accessing that kind of content. That's one example of being preventative. In other ways, looking like I was explaining the video surveillance, being able to use AI tools and to be able to see like what's going on in the campus. Again, this allows you to be more proactive in being able to deal with an incident or a criminal target, that before they actually do something that could, take lives with it. So there's many other training. I mean, I would say training is the big thing, is being able to train the staff and the students on what to do, how to behave online, digitally, what not to do, and what would you do in a situation that you suspect something that's not right? How do you report that? How would you be able to hand off the students safely to their parents? One of the biggest areas in K-12 education, not higher education, but in K-12, the most vulnerable time, in terms of impacting the safety of the students, when there's that handshake between the parent and the school, parent dropping off a student or parent picking up a student. And so there's all kinds of new technologies now to improve that process, that whole, giving the kid to the parents or picking up the kids from the parents. And there's many vendors that actually make a living out of improving that process by using more communication tools with the parents, but also building boundaries around like what time exactly will you be coming to pick up the kid, and if so, we won't let that student out on the street until that time. like within minutes before you pick them up. So things like that could improve the overall safety of the campus.
Great, thank you. So you started the company Global Grid for Learning with the goal of improving school safety. So can you tell us a little bit about how this company kind of weds educational technology with the goal of improving campus safety?
Yeah, so we're a B Corp, and as a B Corp, we're driven by our mission, social impact mission. Safety is one of two initiatives. The other one is skills, teaching the kids skills that help them get jobs and be employable. But let's focus on safety. With safety, we created a framework for school safety. We call it Safer Schools in America. And we rolled this out 3 years ago in partnership with some research think tanks. So we really analyze all of the things that impact safety, from emergency preparedness to physical campus security, to cybersecurity, online cybersecurity, to digital online safety, and social emotional learning, like the overall emotional wellness of the students. Because in many cases, some of the kids who have some mental illness who are not detected are the ones sometimes from within that cause some of these incidences. So social emotional wellness is really, and behavioral wellness is really important, something to track and monitor and prevent any incidences from happening. And we also looked at the whole overall culture of the school. Like, is the principal of that school leading by example when it comes to safety? And is he or she teaching their staff the best practices for safety and investing in safety? So it takes the right culture, the right leadership to improve the overall culture of that school. So we implemented this framework by creating a grant program where schools applied for that grant. And the first part of that was to do self-assessment. So we gave them an online survey, and they took the online survey tool. And being able to do that survey allows them on their own to detect the gaps that they have in terms of the holes, in terms of what they don't have today that they need to invest in to improve overall safety. We have like 60 different components under that framework. So sometimes they didn't know what they don't know, right? They didn't know that there is a tool that could do this, whatever that may be. And so it was an educational tool for the staff of these schools. And I'd say it in the past tense because we stopped doing this, because now we make this tool available to the schools without necessarily having to do a grant behind it. And we've built, through that grant, an ecosystem of edtech vendors that are aligned with this framework. And many of these edtech vendors are available on our website, GG4L.com, where you could come in and search by some of these criteria and find out which vendor does what when it comes to school safety. So we're very proud of the work that we've done there, because it was educational. It was more like preventative, as you said earlier, by teaching the leaders about what they should be doing and making sure that they know there are tools that could fix some problems in advance, is something that could improve the overall safety of the schools and ultimately save lives.
Yeah, that sounds awesome and super important. So obviously you work with a lot of different schools. What is something that you would say a lot of schools are lacking when it comes to improving and securing safety for their students?
Yeah, that's a great question, Michael. I mean, if I have one thing to say to the schools, is protect your student data, because there's so much an outside intruder could learn about an individual student or a group of students by intercepting any type of communications or stealing data. Cyber attacks are the biggest risk to schools nowadays. So protect your student data and your staff data by not letting that data float around in spreadsheets or in a very insecure manner being given to vendors without vetting the edtech vendors for their own cybersecurity safety compliance. But also looking at that, when I was mentioning PII data, personally identifiable information, if there's a way to minimize the number of data elements or the volume of data that has PII in it that you share with your vendors, the more you do that, the more secure you're going to become, the better you're going to improve the overall protection of the privacy of your students. And so privacy and security are two big issues, which I know keeps a lot of districts leaders awake at night, thinking about how to do a better job protecting it. That's really the mission of my company, is to help schools be more secure with their data, share it securely with third-party vendors in a responsible and secure manner, but also to filter as much PII data as you can before you share with the third-party vendors. And so we're here to help school districts that want to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's so interesting because people who aren't actively in the campus safety world, when they think about campus safety, I imagine their mind goes straight to school shooter or physical violence. But as you have pointed out, cybersecurity is a massive piece to this puzzle. So can you just help us understand why that is so important? Why would somebody want to hack into a school cyber network in the first place? Why is that even something that's going on?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And cybersecurity, by the way, is two ways. It's preventing the outside coming in, but also to govern the users inside your system to make sure they're not doing something wrong internally. Like sometimes one of the biggest culprit in terms of hack attacks on the school's network are the students themselves who are trying to experiment their skills, hacking skills, and they test it on the schools to see how secure is the school's network. So it's not just preventative from the outside, but also from the inside. But cybersecurity, schools right now are the most vulnerable target for cybersecurity criminals. Many schools are being attacked right now for ransomware because that data, I was talking about the student data, that's worth gold. You know, it's got social security numbers, sometimes it's got your parent contact information, it's got things about your demographics, where you live. And a lot of people try to steal that data from schools. And believe it when I say that most schools are not really good at security today. They are doing as much as they can, but their resources are limited. And the IT specialists that work there have so much to do with very few resources available. So it's a continuous improvement, but it's definitely an area of vulnerability, and we need to make sure we spend time and money focusing on school cybersecurity, because it's costing schools. I don't know if you've been reading, some of the attacks, cyber attacks, are costing some of the school districts millions of dollars in ransom that they have to pay to these criminals to be able to get their data back. And
It's
so
unbelievable.
It is costing the districts a lot of money.
Yeah, definitely. So it's a great investment to have your security secured, which brings me to my next point, which is budgeting. So obviously, budget is a huge component to school safety, and they say that you could always tell a school's priorities or any business's priorities by looking at the budget. And of course, some public school districts or districts in areas that struggle financially may have a harder time securing their cyber and other things regarding public safety. So what do we do in that situation? How do we make this accessible to all sorts of school districts, even if they may not have as much money as the private ones?
Do exactly what we're doing today, and that is being able to build centrally hosted solutions like EdTech solutions that are more affordable to implement versus trying to build everything in-house. So usually these solutions I'm talking about cost things like thousands of dollars per year per school if it's built in-house, versus if it's shared as a software as a service model, becomes much more affordable. And so I would say try to use as much subscription-based technologies as you can. That's number one. Number two, you're going to invest in resources that you didn't have before. Many campuses are hiring campus security officers, police, all of this, investing in technology for security on campus, like metal detectors and better access control for the rooms and things like that. But no matter what you do, you cannot allow your cybersecurity infrastructure to be vulnerable, because you can protect your physical security, but your cybersecurity is vulnerable. You're still very vulnerable as an institution. So invest a lot. And so some institutions now are hiring information security officers. They're not cheap. Their salaries are very high because it's hard to find really good, experienced information security officers, and doing the compliance audits and testing to make sure that they are secure. but not everybody's doing it. And I would say less than 20% of the districts in America are doing it. I'm not sure what percentage of higher ed institutions are doing it, but my suggestion would be to make it a top priority, because if you don't do it, there'll be regrets later.
Right. So how do we get the word out? How do we make districts understand just how important this is?
This is where ZeroNow comes in, and I'm very proud to be an advisor on the ZeroNow board, and really helping shape up some of the messages that are going out to the community, sharing best practices, sharing stories of what to do, what not to do, and being able to also promote these solutions, these innovations that we're talking about, so that the schools are aware that they exist. And so it's helping the vendors reach an audience where it's the targeted audience, people who care about security and wellness in campuses. But it's also helping the schools at the other side to know what is out there and who are all the innovative vendors that they could leverage. So it's helping both sides to connect better as an organization. So I'm very proud of the work that ZeroNow is doing, and what I can do to help as well.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's so great that we're able to have these conversations and talk about these things that are so important. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that you have faced. So I'm not sure, how long has Global Grid for Learning been in business?
So Global Grid has been in business for less than 4 years. We've had a tremendous success story so far. We have over 1,700 school districts with 25,000 schools who've joined our network. It's free to schools. So most districts, when they find out what we do and how to join, they just fill out the application, and within 1 or 2 days, we help them, integrate their data sources so we could protect their data sharing and data exchange. We call it data governance, so that when they share their data with third-party vendors, they know exactly which data is shared with which vendor every single night. So if a vendor has had a cybersecurity attack, that was unexpected, you would know exactly which data was basically subjected to that attack, to that ransomware attack. So you could sleep better at night as an IT director or CIO of a district or superintendent or principal. And so our job is to really help school districts protect their data, and we're free to schools. So if there's one message to anybody is, take a look at GG4L.com. It's free to join, and you shouldn't procrastinate. Yeah.
So within the 4 years of starting Global Grid for Learning, what have been some obstacles that you guys have needed to overcome? Some things that maybe didn't go as planned that you had to pivot to?
That's a great question, Michael. I mean, in terms of obstacle, it was really getting the message out to schools that it is really important to stop the way that they were sharing data the old way through CSV files, spreadsheets, or the teacher goes in and shares with the vendor a spreadsheet of all the students in his or her class. That's not safe. And trying to get that message out to as many districts and as many school leaders and teachers, it's not an easy thing. It's definitely a challenging message to communicate. But so that's one. And two is getting the vendors to understand that collecting too much data is actually more risk for them as well. You don't want to be collecting more data than you really need to be able to function as an application vendor. So we've been educating both sides of the fence in terms of the vendors and the schools of how to minimize the data that's being collected, how to protect it better, and how to use a secure governed exchange for sharing that data so you don't get into trouble. And so that's been, I would say, the biggest challenge is getting that information out to schools. But other than that, it's been great service, and we've had an amazing journey so far. We'll continue to grow, and I would love to continue to serve the school districts.
So let me ask you this. If I'm a school administrator or principal and I'm listening to this and I'm like, wow, I really need to get some cybersecurity in my school, what should I do? What's my next step?
That's a great question. So there isn't one single step. It's a combination of steps that you have to do. First, make sure that your IT leader is well trained and well informed about cybersecurity. And if they're not, there are classes out there for cybersecurity courses that they take. They get certified in cybersecurity. And we work with IBM, we work with Google, Microsoft, all these companies, and Coursera, where we bring in that cybersecurity training in a very affordable way to the IT staff or any staff in the school. So the first thing is learn. be informed about all the things you need to be doing. And once you have that, you build a plan. And so part of the planning process is to set aside a budget and hire at least a dedicated resource, either a consultant or full-time employee. It doesn't have to be a full-time employee. Usually if you're a district, you may want to just hire a consultant to come in and help you build that plan. And once you have the plan, then you're going to know exactly what tools you need to invest in. Your biggest next priority would be execution of that plan. And we're always here to help educate. If you go to our website, we have a catalog called the Catalyst Catalog, that if you go under cybersecurity, you'll see all of the different security tools and what they do each. And so happy to help school districts identify all the innovations out there from all the companies that we work with.
Yeah, I think that's super helpful. So thank you so much for having us understand EdTech's role in safety. I guess my final question is, what's next? What are the next steps for you and the next steps for your company in your continuation to fight for this important mission?
That's a great question. We plan to continue to innovate, right? And innovation, takes time and money. But as we expand our reach in as many, like right now we're in 25,000 schools, we're learning about things that the schools are asking for that we still don't have. So continue to innovate our platform to give them better tools and better capabilities to protect their data, especially in the area of data privacy. I would say the one area we want to continue to invest in is to improve how you could protect sharing private data, PII data with third parties, and circumvent needing to do so. So if you don't need to store an email address for every student in your platform, we could do other things. There are other techniques that prevent, like to make up for the lack of an email address. So we continue to work on that innovation. It's a journey. And if there's one thing we're going to invest a lot in, it would be the data privacy protection.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Robert. I thought this was a great conversation. I learned so much, and thank you for all that you do. And I look forward to seeing you around at some of those ZeroNow board meetings.
I look forward to that as well, Michael. Thank you so much. It was a great interview. I appreciate your questions.
Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.